Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be looking at Season 7 of The X-Files. So after the death of the Syndicate, Season 7 takes the show into a new direction that was established in the Season 6 finale, while also wrapping up some other story arcs that were established earlier on in the show. Season 7 is a very strange season to me, as I'm sure it was for most people. Because while I certainly enjoyed it, it seems to be at odds with itself, as if it can't decide what it wants to be. And considering Season 6 wrapped up most of the mythology, it seems the intention was to wrap up the show once and for all with Season 7. However, just by watching this season, you can tell that Chris Carter and the Fox network weren't sure if the show was going to get picked up for an 8th season. Ultimately, it did, because despite the show's declining ratings, it was still a relatively lucrative property for Fox. So yeah, it's a very confused season, but I still enjoyed it for what it was, especially for the Monster of the Week episodes. And yeah, let's get into it. So the mythology episodes were kind of a mixed bag for me this season, so I'll start by getting into the things I liked, and the stuff I disliked I'll discuss later. The opening two-parter, The Sixth Extinction 1 and 2, Amour Fati, picks up immediately where Season 6 left off, and it does a good job in addressing some of the stuff left dangling at the end of Season 6. You know, everything from Mulder's frenetic brain activity to the truth behind the alien artifact discovered in Africa. And it adds a very thought-provoking and philosophical layer to the mythology. You know, it has to do with the origins of the universe and how aliens tie into it. The next two-parter, Sein und Zeist and Closure, finally addresses one of the show's longest-running mysteries, that being what happened to Samantha, Mulder's sister. The answer to this is very divisive among fans. Some people found it to be the best possible answer to this question, while others found it to be a total cop-out, especially on Chris Carter's part. Personally, I was quite happy with the end result, as I felt there couldn't be any other possible way of wrapping up this storyline in a satisfying manner, and above all else, it was just a very emotional episode. Possibly the most emotional episode in the show's history. Enemy, an episode written by William B. Davis, who plays the cigarette-smoking man, sees Scully join the cigarette-smoking man himself to find the cure for all diseases known to mankind. The premise may sound a bit dodgy at first, but the cigarette-smoking man has a specific reason for wanting to pursue this. However, despite all of this, I also have plenty of issues with this season's mythology episodes, but again, we'll get to that later. There's a ton of enjoyable standalone episodes this season, and they save this season from being a potential disaster, considering how inconsistent the mythology episodes are. Orison serves as a sequel to the Season 2 episode Irresistible, and marks the return of Donnie Foster. In the episode, a reverend by the name of Orison frees Foster from jail in the hopes of passing judgment onto him. And fun fact, Reverend Orison was played by the late great Scott Wilson, may he rest in peace, who's perhaps best known for his role as Herschel Reed from The Walking Dead. The Amazing Melini centers on a magician of the same name who performs an amazing trick that draws the attention of Scully and Mulder. While the plot occasionally requires suspension of disbelief, this is still a fun comedic episode that fans of magic will definitely enjoy. Signs and Wonders is a religious-themed episode about a series of ritualistic murders being connected to a small-town church that takes the Bible quite literally and believes in the inerrancy of it. X-Cops, which is arguably the best episode of the season, is a crossover between the X-Files and the reality show Cops. Cops is a series about real-life police officers doing what they do best: catching criminals, performing sting operations, executing search warrants, etc., all while on camera. In X-Cops, however, Scully and Mulder team up with the police to investigate a series of disturbances that may have been caused by a monster. The episode was filmed to feel like an authentic episode of Cops, but with Scully and Mulder in it as well, and it's just a fun, hilarious, and occasionally scary episode episode that I can highly recommend to you. Hollywood AD, an episode written and directed by David Duchovny, sees Scully and Mulder investigate a case involving a religious artifact known as the Lazarus Bowl. Meanwhile, Wayne Fetterman, a Hollywood producer and close friend of Skinner's, makes a movie based on the X-Files division, making the episode very self-referential and surprisingly funny in the process. And the last episode I can mention is basically I Wish in French, because I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Basically, it follows a man and his handicapped brother who discover a genie with the ability to grant wishes. It's another comedic episode that I was thoroughly entertained by. It had some great visual effects and a very thought-provoking ending when you think about it. And as for the finale, without giving anything away, it took the show back to its roots. And by roots, I mean as far back as the pilot episode in season 1. On top of that, it ended on a game-changing cliffhanger with a jaw-dropping revelation as the icing on the cake. Now, this season's Mythology episodes are kind of all over the place, and even though I've mentioned the things I liked about the episodes, there's plenty to dislike about them as well. For example, the opening two-parter felt needlessly stretched out and easily could have been a single episode. The second two-parter, which revolves around the truth about Samantha, has one glaring issue with it. Considering the episode has to do with missing children, the issue is with the parents of these children. If you've watched the episode, you'll know what I'm talking about. The episode Amy requires suspension of disbelief since Scully is a bit more naive than usual. And honestly, I wish that Chris Carter, the writers, and the Fox network had all just agreed to let the show end here, and that there were more than 6 episodes so they could wrap everything up nicely. Aside from that, season 7 also features some of the show's weakest Monster of the Week episodes to date. The first one being First Person Shooter. It's a universally hated episode that I actually enjoyed. I don't think it's as bad as everyone makes it out to be, but I still have a lot of issues with it. It revolves around a virtual reality video game that the lone gunman helped design, but when the game is taken over by a female character, it's up to Scully and Mulder to save the day. While First Person Shooter was entertaining to a certain degree, the show's budget holds the episode back from its full potential. Underneath the surface, it comes off as nothing more than anti-video game propaganda, and it even ripped off elements of The Matrix, which premiered in theaters almost a year prior. All Things is an episode written and directed by Gillian Anderson, and it sees her reconnecting with a married man that she had an affair with while in medical school. I get that the episode is meant to serve as a turning point for her, considering she develops a crisis of faith given her skepticism of all things supernatural, as well as her Catholic upbringing. And don't get me wrong, I think the episode is actually pretty decent, but it barely qualifies as an X-File. It lacks significant tension, and I'm not a big fan of Gillian Anderson's directing. And of course, the infamous Fight Club, an episode that, again, I think is better than most people give it credit for, but it still pales in comparison to most X-Files episodes. It's about a pair of doppelgangers, both played by Kathy Griffin, who, when in close contact, cause nothing but mayhem and destruction in their parts. As a comedic episode, it has its moments, even if the humor is kind of hit or miss. That, coupled together with some logic issues here and there, makes this one of the season's weaker episodes. And the one episode I forgot to mention is the episode Millennium, which serves as a crossover between the X-Files and Millennium, an X-Files spin-off that I have talked about and have reviews for included in my X-Files playlist if you want to check those out, and is also meant to be a conclusion to that particular series. Did the episode succeed? Nah, not really. It's still decent on its own, but it could have been so much better. It sees a member of the Millennium Group resurrecting the dead in an attempt to bring about an apocalypse starting in the year 2000. And so Scully and Mulder team up with Frank Black himself to prevent this from happening. While it is an effective Monster of the Week episode, given that Scully, Mulder, and Frank Black are essentially up against zombies, and it had a pretty decent ending to it. In many ways, it ended up feeling less like a Millennium episode and more like just another typical X-Files episode. As a result, a lot of key elements of the Millennium series are glaringly absent here. You know, the Millennium group as a whole, Peter Watts, Emma Hollis, and so on. On top of that, the way in which Frank Black is reintroduced is kind of weird. I mean, casual viewers won't really have an issue with it, but it was strange to me considering how season 3 of Millennium ended. And even on its own, the episode did become tedious towards the middle. But honestly, this episode could have been so much worse. You know, it's decent for what it is, and I did get some enjoyment out of it. Lance Henriksen, who played Frank Black, has gone on to express his disappointment with the episode, claiming that it didn't feel like a proper conclusion to Millennium, and that's a pretty fair argument. You know, a part of me wishes the writers had rethought this episode to a certain degree. So yeah, those are my thoughts on season 7 of the X-Files. Next time we're going to be looking at season 8, so look forward to that very soon. Thank you all for watching, guys. Please be sure to like the video, share it, and subscribe. Ring the bell, take care, and I'll see you soon.